Hey guys, Happy New Year and welcome back to the channel. I really appreciate you guys taking a look at the video. Today we're going to be revealing Alchemical Revolution Alter Edition. The set comes out next week, just in time for the Michigan Regional. If you're going to be playtesting stuff, that's pretty cool to be able to access the cards and be able to kind of get into it from there. So what I want to do is just kind of review some of the cards, talk about some of the cards I think that might have some pretty good potential. Go over some of the new artwork and stuff and just kind of give an overview of what we can expect from the set. So, set releases, like I said, January 10th, and one of the cards that's getting put in the set is Cosmic Bolt, so you no longer have to try to access those via the RE structure deck. You can actually just access your commons, get a box, open several of them, and be good to go. Artwork reprints, all of the ultra rares ended up getting an artwork reprint. So we can kind of go over those. Temporal Spectrometer, getting new artwork. Astrolabe with the Ari on it. Gloamspire Lance with Diana, and Magebane Lash with Nico on it. So these are all your material deck option cards that are getting alternative reprints. Luckily, they're going to be only one-ofs, so you only need to hunt one down of each if you want the alternative artwork. Other artwork reprints, these are your main deck ones, your other ultra rares. So Carter getting a new reprint with the new artwork. Personally, I like the other one better, but some people like this one. Neo's Elemental, I think this artwork is actually really cool with all the swords and everything like that. Scry the Stars with Ari, and the Eternal Kingdom. So those four are also getting, as ultra rares, getting alternative art reprints. The champions are also getting reprints, but they're getting reprinted as CSRs, so they're going to be sought after for that collectability purposes. You have Vanitas level 1 as well as Vanitas level 2. You have Polcock, and then you also have Nico. As you can tell, which one's my favorite. But going over the new cards, let's discuss the cards. So I categorize them by Ranger, Cleric, and Guardian, and then at the end we'll be going over some of the cards that I think are potential. So I'll go a little bit in depth with them here, read what they do, and then from there kind of go into what I think, in my opinion, are going to be good cards and to kind of discuss why. So first one's Bombastic Sprint. It's a 2-cost fire Ranger skill reaction card. So you can make your champion distant. If you're playing Polcock, it costs 1 less because of his effect, and then Polcock bonus, you actually get the next Ranger activation card can be activated as though it had fast activation. So you can play your Calamity Cannon, that costs 3 less, plus Polcock's reduction, so it actually only costs 3, and you can play it at fast speed, versus having to wait that turn and your opponent knows that you have one coming. You can kind of surprise them. So maybe give a little Polcock a boost. I don't think he's going to be a crazy deck, but hey, some people will test and prove me wrong. Reconnaissance Scout. It's a 2-cost wind ally automaton, fast activation, range 2, and then class bonus on enter. Target unit you control becomes distant. Prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to that unit, or to that unit. Yes, I think that this card can be played for sure in your unique ally build. You're playing a few things, and we'll go over that in depth. So I think this is a potentially good card there. Surging Undertow, it's a 4-cost water. Ranger skill card costs 2 less to activate. Put the top 3 cards of your deck into the graveyard. If there are 3 or more water elementals, you can choose a unit and become distant. The artwork kind of gives away what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to target Dahlia. You can swing with Dahlia, play this at fast speed, mill 3, card goes to the grave, there's 4 in there, and Dahlia gets that buff from her being distant for attacking. So Water Diana allies build is there. Obviously, Water doesn't have an answer to Nullifying Lantern too well, so that might be something to consider, but hey, it might be a good little fun deck to play and mess around with. Focus Round, 3-cost on enter draw card, so it's kind of like a Forest Cake, but it costs 1 more. But then you have to pay 2 to load it into a weapon. So you're paying 5 to draw a card and deal 2 attack. I don't think it's the best card, but some people might play it just for that draw, I guess, maybe. But there are other cards that can be drawn for sure, and they make it way better. Gloamspire Prowler, Umbra, 4 cost. Costs 3 less if you have 2 or more curses under your champion's lineage. So if you use Umbra Sight, you can draw a card, put one underneath, draw another card, and take damage. So she can cost potentially up to 1 as a 3/3. Class bonus either as an assassin or a ranger. So that's something you can also play. You can play with Tristan if you're playing that stuff too. So on death, it puts it on the bottom of your champion's lineage. You get to draw a card, recover 2, and then the object gets -2 health. So you can play it in Tristan as well. Obviously, you can play the curses in that. Tristan's more just focused on, Shadow Strike, Umbra Waltz, Umbra Sight kind of thing. But it might be a thing in there. But I don't see it probably getting too much play. We'll see what happens once the set releases and what people are cooking up. Moving on to Cleric, because Cleric got the most cards released for the set, so let's go over those. Automated Gardener, Cleric Automaton, class bonus, Gather for 3-drop 2/3. Get to gather an herb. Some people want that extra herb. You might play it. You might, once we go over some of the other cards with fire, you could play that, Gather, and then Cremation Ritual. Fortifying Aroma is a 5-cost spell that puts 2 buffs on a target ally as a fast activation. It does cost 1 less for each herb that you have, so as you're leveling up, you get to produce your herbs. You can potentially play this for 0. Putting a buff on something, 2 buffs on something for free, maybe. You're giving up a card to do that, so I don't know on that one. I don't think we'll see very much play, but hey, who knows. Gale Stream Insight. I think this card is highly underrated, and I'll go over it a little bit more in depth, but let's go as to why when we go over the potential cards as well. So it's a 4-cost Wind Cleric spell. It costs 1 less if you're a cleric, and then it costs 1 less if you have 4 or more cards in memory. Look at the top 6 cards. You may reveal a spell from among them and put it into your memory. Put the rest on the bottom. I'll go over this with that, but Razor Gale is kind of the card that I'm thinking with that. Frozen Dismissal, so it's a 3-drop water cleric spell reaction. Cost 1 less if you're a cleric. Negate target ally unless its controller pays 4. Banish that card that had its activation negated. Could be an ally counter maybe, but we'll go over that too. Slash and Burn, 2-cost fire cleric skill. Cost 1 less to activate. If you're a cleric, so it only costs 1. You get to, at fast speed, you get to gather. And then you may banish up to 3 fire elementals in your graveyard, and for each card banished, you get to gather as well. So this potentially can be a 1-drop gather 4. So shuffling your Cosmic Bolts into your deck and things like that might be something to discuss. Perdition. I want this card to be good, but I don't think it will be. It is a 5-cost fire spell as a cleric. It costs 2 less, so it only costs 3. For each target opponent controls they gain on death, it deals 1 damage to that unit until the end of the turn. Deal 1 damage to that ally. So basically when you're going to deal 1 damage to something, maybe if it has 1 health, then on death it will deal 1 to everything else. So now you're dealing 2, and then it goes from 2 to 3. So it's supposed to be like a Defile if you're familiar with Hearthstone. Dealing that damage and just kind of spreading out and killing the board. Horde Counter, cost X, and then as an addition to activate, you can pay Y herbs. So it negates a target card unless it's a controller will pay the total amount of those 2 things combined. So if you pay 3 and sacrifice 2 herbs, they must pay 5. And then it'll banish if it's negated, and then when it's negated, you get to glimpse 3. So with this card, your sacrifice, most of the time, because of the amount of reaction people have to your Cauldron, you're sacrificing your herbs before you get to Astra. So, depending on the deck and some of the new stuff that's come out with like Slash and Burn and stuff, you could revitalize some of your herbs afterwards, but you're usually trying to sacrifice it for the Cauldron to shuffle your Cosmic Bolts to deal damage. So this might just become pay whatever to negate and then glimpse 3. So I don't know how I feel about it. I guess in testing we'll see how well that comes up. And then the other card is Dawn's Reversal. It's a 4-cost Astra Cleric spell. Class bonus if something was negated. This costs 4 less, so it's free. So you get to glimpse up to your level and then deal level damage to target units. So if you sacrifice a couple herbs, you can deal 5, glimpse 5, show a Cosmic Bolt. I think I can see potential, and we'll go over that too, because that's one of my potential cards there. Some new cards for Guardian, not too many, but they are some pretty decent cards overall. You have a Company Guard. It's a 2-cost Guardian human, class bonus on enter. Another target unit becomes fostered as a 1/3 for a 2-drop. This kind of goes hand in hand with the Imperial Panzer, a 3-drop foster, because if it gets fostered, it becomes a 3/4 for 3 with vigor. So kind of like the stats of a Frostborn Paladin when it gets fostered, and it has vigor, so it can restand and retaliate versus having intercept. So we'll go over those two a little bit. I think those cards are pretty good overall. Refabrication costs 3 as a Neos, because obviously you're playing Tony all the way. Sacrifice 2 tokens rather than paying for it. If your influence is 5 or less, you get to draw 2. Drawing cards is good. Neos Tony is bad. So here we are. And then the last card, Temptation's Facade. It's a 1-cost water spell. On enter, draw. As a Nico bonus, you can tap this and change target, something that targets another non-champion object you control to this. So things like Fracturize, things like Zephyr, stuff like that, you can redirect the target to this card. And so it's just protection for some things. So I think it's a pretty good card, but we'll go over that a little bit more with the potentials. However, we did get new champions as well. So you have Polcock as a level 1. So the one thing that's beneficial between this and Nico, and I'll go over Nico as well, is that you're getting access to your element very early. So these two focus on having a fire underneath, but you certainly don't have to. So I'll bring up both of them, and we'll go over both of them. So with both of these cards, it's if you have the water element card underneath it, so if you're that dedicated spirit, you'll get the bonus effect. However, what this allows you to do is you have earlier access to your elemental, because the problem with Polcock and Nico was if you wanted to play fire or wind with Nico or water and wind with Polcock, you had to focus on the element of your spirit and then level up not only to level 1 but then get to level 2 to access fire. So both of these now allow you to essentially have opportunity to potentially look into playing another spirit with those different elements, and then dedicate and figure out the route you want to go with things. So you could play like a water Polcock, and then you drop a Dahlia or whatever, and then you can go from there and then level up, and now you have access to both water and fire. Same thing with Nico. You could play fire for cremations and draw and discarding stuff out of your hand that you didn't want for floating and stuff. But if you dedicate to the elements, each of them will get a bonus effect. So level 1 Polcock has 19 health, and on enter, if you have a fire card underneath it, the next ranger ally card comes into the field as distance, so you get their bonus effect. So dropping an ally, getting any of the bonus effects if it becomes distant, things like that, that is pretty good. And then Nico, Rapture's Embrace, on enter, if there's another water elemental underneath it, so if you're playing the water spirit in some fashion, you get to look at the top 2. You can put a floating memory in the grave and then put the other one on the bottom, or something along the lines of that. That's typically what you're going to be doing with that, so you get one of the floatings in there. I can see both. Obviously people are going to want to try Polcock with the new stuff and see how that happens. Nico, I'm on the fence about a little bit. So being level 1, that means you're fully dedicating to the Guardian aspect of things. It could potentially work. It could be good. But a lot of people are playing like Tamer and other stuff because you get those additional effects and things like that. So we'll see what majority of people decide, whether they're going to test Nico as the level 1 or something else versus the Polcock. And then the Polcock too. And then for Vanitas, we got a level 3 option. So we already had 1 and 2, so we're getting level 3. You may activate this card from your material deck, and it costs 1 less for every 3 damage your champion has dealt to other champions this turn. So you swing for 6, it costs 2 less. You can just play it during your turn whenever, and you get the additional health. He has 3 attack versus the 1. That's pretty good. And then on champion hit, he gets the additional bonus effect that Vanitas level 2 had, where Vanitas level 2 had to deal 7 for cards to cost 1 more. Now this just says that you just have to hit to make it cost 1 more. So definitely definitely pretty solid options for all the champions getting their level 1s or level 3 respectively. I think that there is potential for these decks, and just having the right player play around with them will for sure be options. So going over potentials, cards that I think are the best of the set, and just some of the reasons why. Not every card can be good, but let's go over some of those. So Reconnaissance Scout with unique allies. So the on-enter portion, giving something distant as fast activation. You could do stuff with like Pierce or and Lobe, Oathkeeper. Those two, get their effects from other effects, from being ranged and distant and things like that. So that is a potential wind ally card that might come up. So I think that we can definitely see play on that for sure. Slash and Burn. Personally, this is just from testing. Eventually, with the fire aspect and being able to gather up to 4 times. I mean, obviously everyone's playing Wind Ari. Some people might look into fire now a little bit and kind of make that decision from there with things. So I think it might have some potential, but at the same time it might just not at all. People might just stick with the wind option or the watermill. So Frozen Dismissal, I think this is more focused for like your side deck, but I think it does have potential to just be paying 2 or paying 3 to negate something unless your opponent pays 4. People all the time are playing around Frostbind to drop cards, but now if you're focused on an ally deck, you're like, okay, well, your Delu costs 6, so that's huge, especially if they're so definitely something that may be considered a side deck option, and kind of focus on that for sure. Dawn's Reversal, I think with Astroseal you might be playing this, because Astroseal will automatically negate the card instead of all these effects that your opponent can pay. So if people are already playing Astroseal to negate cards, and then you can turn around and so if something is banished, you can play Astroseal for free. So if they already had like a dungeon guide that got banished, you can negate the dungeon guide for 0. And then Dawn's Reversal, you can come in and deal 3, 4, 5 damage depending on sacrificing herbs and glimpse to Comet Fall or to do something else. So both of these potentially could be 0 cost. You have to see both cards, so it's kind of a 2-card combo. I think that you might see it. I really do. Just in general, you dig, you glimpse, you get the stack, you see both the cards, you get some pretty good advantage off. So I think that with Windari that might see potential play. Gale Stream Insight, I think, is one of the most insane underrated cards from what people have been talking about. It's a cleric spell as a wind. So if you're playing the new Vanitas and you're going up to level 3 and you're playing Razor Gale stuff or whatever aspect of that you want to, this card can be nuts. It basically can cost up to 2, or cost down 2 to where it costs 2. You get to add another spell, put it into memory. So you're feeding your Veiling Breeze, potentially for that. And then you get to add that spell, and you get to kind of trigger up the Vanitas stuff too. So when you're at level 2, he'll gain the attack based on you playing spells and things like that. So if you're playing that with like Razor Gale Calling and stuff like that, I think that card is absolutely insane if you're dedicated to that deck. Last of the potentials for Tony allies, I think you play both a Company Guard and Imperial Panzer. You'll also be playing, obviously, your Recruitment Officer in there. So a Company Guard will have Recruitment Officer to target, to dig, and add an ally. Or you also have the Imperial Panzer being a 3/4. Obviously, they're all class bonus effects. For Tony, so you have to get up to that level. So you're not dropping it turn 1. But when you get to Tony, dropping it, if you go level up to Tony and drop 2 Imperial Panzers and they have to attack the Tony, then they come back as 3/4s. I think that's very strong, especially in that ally build. I think it's going to be a very strong contender for cards. Same thing with the Company Guard, giving them the fostered ability to dig, because it's always been that was always the little bit of the issue with Tony is you unless you played them the turn you leveled up and they had protection, people would just ping damage at them so they wouldn't get the effects. So now you can force it and proceed to that right there. So I think that's pretty good. And as far as Nico, I think Temptation's Facade is a very strong card. Okay, so on enter, draw a card, you're protecting your Magebane Lash, you're protecting if you're playing other other object things like the Vapor Jet Shield for protection for damage, things like that. I think that this card, you know, being able to draw a card and then have targeted protection is pretty good. And then, like I said, with the Nico, you might play Sylvie, you might not. We don't know. I think this has potential to be good. I want both CSRs, so that way Nico looks beautiful. So those are for sure some potentials on that and throughout that. But like I said, with the Nico, you have access to fire and you have access to wind, where you can play around with that and have access to your water as you go to level 1. So that's very strong as a potential as well. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I want to thank you for watching. Like the video, comment what you want to see, and subscribe. As we get ALC Alter Edition launched, that's when we'll start putting some deck profiles together with things, kind of focus on showcasing some of the new decks, some potential with Vanitas, with Nico, and with Polkok. So I really want to thank you guys so much. As always,